In a series of a few videos, today we are going to discuss the various aspects of disciplinary proceedings under CCS Conduct Rules and CCS CCA Rules 1965. In the first video, I am going to discuss with you regarding the various aspects covered under the CCS Conduct Rules 1964. The moment you join the central government services dealing with any of the central government activities, except in railways and all India services such as IAS, IPS and IFS, all other government servants come under the ambit of CCS Conduct Rules 1964. It covers all the aspects of the conduct of a government servant, both in the office as well as in his personal life. All the provisions of the CCS Conduct Rules are basically guided by the various provisions in the Constitution of India. The idea is to dispense justice, to ensure a fair play in government activities, to avoid any kind of discrimination in government working, and the foremost, to avoid any type of corruption in government services. All the government servants, by virtue of being a part of the coming under the ambit of the CCS Conduct Rules 1964, are supposed to implement the government policies with a full-hearted dedication, irrespective of whether he personally agrees with the government policy or not. All government guidelines in dealing with weaker sections, women, children and other aspects shall be followed by the government servant during the working. The CCS Conduct Rules 1964 consists of 25 rules covering almost all the aspects of the conduct of a government servant. The basic rules dealing with the conduct of a government servant or any violation in the conduct of a government servant are the CCS Conduct Rules 1964, CCS CCA Rules 1965 and the various CVC guidelines issued from time to time. So, as a government servant, we should be in generally aware of what are the provisions of CCS Conduct Rules, what will happen if there is any violation, what is covered under CCS CCA Rules, how to deal with these violations of the CCS Conduct Rules, and strictly follow the CVC guideline in our actions. It starts with a short title, commencement and application, which are all the clauses where it is applicable, various definitions of the terms within the rules, and then comes rule number 3, which is the general rules. This is the most important rule covering lot of general aspects of conduct of a government servant. In case a violation of a conduct or a provision in the rule is not covered by any other rule, mostly these are covered under rule number 3 because it is a general conduct which is explained very well under this rule. Subsequently, in 1995, a amendment has been added for adding promptness and courtesy by the government servants and 3B observance of government policy, and in 1998 a very important provision has been included under this, that is provision of sexual harassment of working women at the workplace. We will be discussing about rule 3 separately because this is a very important rule covering lot of aspects. Rule number 5 prevents the government servant from taking part in politics and elections. To what extent you can be a part of the political party or political activity is covered under rule number 5. Then comes rule number 13, which is a very important provision of which is rules regarding a government servant accepting gifts under various occasions. This is a very important rule because how far you can go in accepting a gift and from whom you can accept, whom you cannot accept. These are all given under rule number 13. Then in 1976, subsequent to the introduction of the Prevention of Dowry Act, a rule has been amended 3A, an additional rule of prevention of accepting dowry by a government servant is included. It is very well defined there what a dowry means, what a gift taken at the time of marriage means, and what a government servant should desist and how he should be desist from a dowry. As per this rule, the definition of dowry goes like, if you accept like whatever properties or other things you are getting when you are getting married, this is not considered as a dowry. It will be considered as a dowry if if the properties or other gifts are taken as a prerequisite for accepting the marriage. So, that is clearly given in that. If it naturally comes, if it is not demanded, then it will not come as a dowry. It is a very important rule, especially for the youngsters and especially for people who are getting their children married. Then comes rule number 15 regarding the private trade or employment. Up to what extent you can get involved with a private trade or employment, or how much your family members can get involved with the private trade or employment, or how you are connected, all are covered under rule number 15. Under rule number 15A, another rule is added as rule number 15A in subletting and vacation of the government accommodation. This is another major rule where a lot of violations takes place and lot of actions are taken on a day-to-day basis. So, knowledge of this rule is also very important. And what is called a sublet, who can come and stay with you, who cannot come and stay with you, is given under rule number 15A. Rule number 18 is another important provision regarding movable, immovable property and valuable property. This is regarding the acquisition and disposal of movable property, immovable property and other valuable properties by a government servant. The basic idea is to prevent the corruption or to prevent a government servant from amassing the wealth beyond the known sources of income. The moment you acquire a movable, immovable property or valuable property, the government should be knowing or should come to know from where you have acquired and when you have acquired. For example, in the case of immovable property, you are supposed to take a prior permission before acquiring that, and after the completion of that you are supposed to intimate in time with various details given to the government. In the case of a movable property, prior permission is not required, but subsequent to the procurement, subsequent to acquisition, you have to intimate with various with the details of source of income and other details. Then comes rule number 21 regarding restrictions regarding marriage. Under this act, under this rule, a government servant is not supposed to or marry a person who is already having a spouse, or is not supposed to marry again when his or her spouse is living. Both are restricted, or both will be considered as a violation to this rule, rule number 21. There are some exemptions in this connected with the personal laws for some particular class or particular ethnic groups. Otherwise, generally this is the rule. Then there is rule number 22. Lot of people don't know about the extent of applicability of this rule. Consumption of intoxicating drinks and drugs. The rule says that not only that you are not supposed to consume liquor in the office or in the workplace, you are not supposed to go to an intoxicating stage by taking drinks or drugs even in a public place. When you say public place, it also covers all type of places where there is no restriction for entry of public. It need not be a public place per se. Any place where a public person can enter is a public place. That means anything outside your home or your relative's home or a house, most of the things are covered under this public place. So, if you are going to an intoxicating stage, if you are using drugs or drinks at such a place, this can be a violation under rule number 22. Then 22A is a letter introduction provision regarding employment of children below 14 years of age. At any point of time, if you are directly or indirectly involved in employing children below 14 years of age, you can be booked under rule number 22A. So, you should not be associated with any such establishment where children below 14 years are directly or indirectly employed. Now, we will discuss about rule number 3, the general rules which are very important. Rule number 3.1 Roman 1, all government servants shall maintain absolute integrity. This is the most important enabling rule under CCS Conduct Rules 1964. Absolute integrity or integrity to the absolute level is the most important virtue a government is expecting from a government servant under CCS conduct rules. Utmost honesty and loyalty to the government is expected under this rule. At any point of time, if it can be proved that your honesty is doubtful, you can be booked under the rule number 311, that is lack of integrity. And when you are assessing the integrity of a person under you also, remember that you cannot declare or cast doubt on the integrity of your subordinate just like that. Because being a very important profession, you have to prove, absolutely prove that the integrity of the person whom you are recording as doubtful is proved on paper. That is very, very important. You cannot say one day, one fine morning, you cannot come out and say that integrity of so and so person is doubtful. Then maintaining devotion to duty, and during your whole service, you should do nothing which will make you unbecoming of a government servant in any aspect. So most of the misconduct in the office comes under these two things, rule number 312 and 313, that is maintaining the devotion duty and becoming unbecoming of a government servant. Or even if violation of any other rule, violation of these two rules will automatically come, because your devotion to duty becomes doubtful if you violate any other rule. Fourth one is, you have to commit yourself to uphold the supremacy of this constitution and democratic values. What is mentioned in the constitution, you cannot violate the constitutional right of a person or do any action which will violate the constitutional rights and remedies available to a person working under you. You cannot act in an undemocratic way at any point of your service. Then defend and uphold the sovereignty and integrity of India, security of the state, public order, decency and morality. Maintain high ethical standards and honesty. This is actually covered under integrity also. Then maintain political neutrality. Up to what extent you can express your political opinions, up to what extent you can get involved in politics, you can have political beliefs, but you have to maintain political neutrality in working. Up to what extent you can involve in an association, being a government servant, is also defined under this. Then promote principles of merit, fairness, impartiality in the discharge of duty. Maintain accountability and transparency. This is another very important aspect. Transparency means not only that you are doing things properly, it should be visible to other persons, transparent to others, that you have done the work in the right way. So it should be on the record that if you have taken a decision, even if it is the right decision, it should be kept on record that under what circumstances this decision is taken. So that is called transparency. Not only that you know that you are taking a right decision, it should be put on paper that this particular decision was taken under following aspects A, B, C, and this is the best decision in the interest of the government which I could take, so I have taken. That is called transparency, that is visible to others. It is like telling that justice is done and justice should appear to have been done. At least you should know how and why the decision is taken for me or against me. So that is called transparency. Maintaining responsiveness to public, particularly to the weaker section, is very important. Whenever you are serving the public, the response to their requirements, especially to the weaker section, is to be maintained. Maintain courtesy and good behavior with the public is another important aspect, important conduct, which all government servants has to follow. Take decisions solely in public interest. This is a very important thing. That is what I told you. Whenever you take a decision, prove that this is the best possible decision under the circumstances in public interest. Promptness and courtesy are recently added in 3A. Observance of government policy. Every government servant shall at all times act in accordance with the government policy regarding certain provisions. In fact, all the government policies are to be implemented by the government, but under 3B, some of the important provisions are given a specific note. As you can read, it is the age of marriage, the age at which a marriage can be conducted for a boy or a girl or your children is clearly given, specified under this. Any violation of this will be dealt very severely. That is why, even though it is generally covered that all government policies are to be followed, these 2-3 things government is more dear to this, holding dear to these provisions. That is why it is specifically mentioned as an addition under rule number 3 as 3b. Then preservation of environment, protection of wildlife and cultural heritage. If you do anything in your service, during your service, in your official capacity or personal capacity, which can be proved that you have not given due consideration for the preservation of environment, wildlife or the cultural heritage, you can be booked under rule number 3b1. Then 3b2 is observance of government policy regarding prevention of crime against human. This is another important provision. Government, even though other rules are equally applicable, as I told you, prevention of crime against human has been specifically mentioned, taken as an additional rule under rule number 3, because government thinks that this is one stress area required in the conduct of a government servant. 3c is one important rule which I want to highlight to all of you. This is the latest addition, prohibition of sexual harassment working women. This has come subsequent to the enactment of a special law on this aspect. So, government has given extensive directions on how this can be implemented at workplace. Any violation in this aspect is to be dealt very severely as per this rule. So, all the people regarding men and women working in a government place or dealing with a government service should know their rights, how this is to be implemented in your office. Every government office is supposed to have a committee for preventing this, for immediate hearing of any complaint on this, and what can be considered as a sexual harassment and what cannot be considered as sexual harassment. For that also government has given very detailed directions are given. Or sometimes the working women, without knowing their rights, will be subjected to sexual harassment continuously and will be suffering. All the women should know their rights, all the men should know their limits, where to stop, what to tell, what not to tell, how to behave, how not to behave. This rule is very important and should be understood and should be implemented and followed strictly. So, once you join the central government services, your conduct right from the day of joining till your day of retirement and little beyond that is controlled by CCS conduct rules, and any violation in this will be dealt with the procedure given in CCA rules or the CVC guidelines or other acts and rules in place. So, that is what a basic introduction to this. You can go through the rules, know about the rules, know about the rights. Best of luck. Thank you.